The office was unusually quiet that Monday morning. The glass walls reflected the cold light of the city, and every step I took toward the conference room echoed like a warning. My hands clutched the small notepad I always carried, filled with numbers, ideas, late-night solutions I had worked on for months. But as I entered, I knew something was wrong. Everyone was already seated around the long polished table. My boss, Mr. Harrison, sat at the head like a king on his throne. His smile wasn't friendly. It was sharp, like a knife about to cut. The other managers avoided my eyes. I could hear my heartbeat louder than their whispers. "Sit down," Mr. Harrison said coldly. I obeyed, though my chest tightened. He cleared his throat. "After reviewing your recent performance, we've decided your services are no longer required here." The words felt like a punch. I blinked, trying to process. "Sir, I don't understand. I just closed our biggest client last week." "Enough," he interrupted, raising a hand. "You may have fooled others, but not me. This company deserves someone better." A few people exchanged guilty glances, but nobody spoke up. My throat burned. I wanted to argue, to scream, but my pride wouldn't let me beg. Slowly, I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor, loud, humiliating. I looked around the room one last time. These were the same people who had once praised me, clapped for my ideas, celebrated my late-night victories. Now they sat frozen, afraid to defend me. I forced a smile, though my eyes burned. "Thank you for the opportunity," I said softly. Then I gathered my notepad, the only thing that still felt mine, and walked out. As the door closed behind me, I heard muffled laughter from the conference room. Harrison's voice carried above the rest. "By Friday, he'll be forgotten." But deep inside, something shifted. Anger mixed with determination. He thought I was finished. He thought I was powerless. What he didn't know was that by Friday, he would be the one facing me. And I wouldn't just be an employee anymore. I would be his new boss. The memory of that Monday still stung as I stepped into the elevator, clutching my notepad. But while the city lights blurred outside the glass, my mind drifted backward, back to when everything had been different. When I first joined Harrison and Company, I was nobody. Just another young man with a cheap suit and dreams too big for my small apartment. I worked long nights, often eating stale sandwiches at my desk while the cleaners vacuumed around me. But little by little, my efforts paid off. I found mistakes in contracts others ignored. I proposed creative strategies that doubled our client list in 1 quarter. I learned every detail of the business until people started coming to me instead of Harrison for solutions. I still remember the first time I presented in the boardroom. My hands shook as I clicked through the slides, but the results spoke louder than my fear. We landed a deal worth millions. Everyone applauded except Harrison. He sat back, lips tight, clapping slowly. His eyes didn't show pride. They showed something darker, envy. From that day on, the air between us changed. He began correcting me in meetings, unnecessary, sharp little cuts designed to shrink me in front of others. When I arrived early, he arrived earlier. When I stayed late, he made sure to send an email questioning why I hadn't finished sooner. At first, I told myself it was just pressure, that he expected more from me because he trusted me. But deep down, I knew better. Harrison didn't like the spotlight drifting away from him. The breaking point came a week before he fired me. We had been preparing for a major client presentation. I worked day and night, polishing every number, rehearsing every line. On the morning of the pitch, Harrison walked in, hair perfectly slicked back, wearing his usual smug confidence. As I began speaking, he interrupted. "Actually, let me take this from here," he said, stepping forward. He presented my work as if it were his own. Every chart, every idea, every phrase, I recognized them all. My chest tightened with rage, but I kept silent. The client smiled, impressed. Harrison basked in their praise, and when the deal closed, the entire room congratulated him. Later, when I confronted him privately, his smirk widened. "You should be grateful," he said. "Standing next to me gives you credibility. Without me, you're just average." The words cut deeper than any insult I'd ever heard. That weekend, I hardly slept. I kept asking myself, should I leave? Should I start fresh somewhere else? But then I thought about everything I had built, every sacrifice I had made. I refused to let him take that from me. By Monday, I walked into the office determined to prove my worth once again. But Harrison had already made his move. He didn't want to compete with me. He wanted to erase me. And so, in front of everyone, he fired me. Yet as I walked out of those glass doors, one thought echoed louder than the pain. This isn't the end. Not for me. I didn't know how yet, but I promised myself one thing: Harrison would regret underestimating me. Because when a man has nothing left to lose, he becomes unstoppable. The elevator doors slid shut behind me that Monday morning, sealing in the echoes of Harrison's cruel laughter. For a moment, I felt the ground slipping away. Fired. Humiliated. Forgotten. But destiny doesn't knock politely. Sometimes it barges in when you least expect it. I spent the afternoon wandering the city streets, my notepad still clutched in my hand. My savings were small, my future unclear, but my mind refused to shut down. Ideas swirled like restless storms. That's when my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Is this Daniel Brooks?" A deep voice asked. "Yes," I said cautiously. "This is Richard Hale." The name froze me. Richard Hale, the billionaire investor whose name appeared in every business magazine. The man who could buy or break entire companies with a single decision. "I attended your client presentation last week," he continued. "The one Harrison led." My jaw tightened. "The one he stole from me." "I know that work wasn't his," Hale said sharply, as if reading my thoughts. "I've seen his style. He couldn't come up with those strategies if his life depended on it." Silence stretched between us. My pulse hammered. "I want to meet you," Hale said. "Tonight. Bring your notes." By evening, I found myself standing inside Hale's penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the glittering city below, but I barely noticed. My notepad rested on the table between us, pages filled with sleepless nights of calculations, visions, and risks others were too afraid to take. Hale flipped through the pages, his sharp eyes scanning every detail. Finally, he leaned back, a small smile breaking through his stern features. "You're wasted at Harrison and Company," he said. "Tell me, Daniel, if you had real backing, capital, resources, connections, what could you build?" I swallowed hard. My voice trembled, but the fire inside me grew stronger. "Something bigger than Harrison ever imagined," I said. Hale's grin widened. "Good, because I like men who've been pushed down. They fight harder." That night changed everything. For the next 3 days, I barely slept. Hale gave me access to his team, his analysts, his network. I poured my soul into preparing a business plan, one that would expose Harrison's weak leadership and highlight the opportunities he had ignored. Every hour mattered. I worked through midnight, fueled by rage and hope. For once, I wasn't just building ideas for someone else to steal. I was building for me. On Wednesday evening, Hale called me again. "I've reviewed your plan. It's bold, risky, but brilliant." My chest tightened as he continued. "I'm buying a controlling share of Harrison and Company this Friday. And when I do, I need someone I can trust to run it." The room spun around me. "You mean?" "Yes," Hale said firmly. "You'll be the new CEO." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Just 4 days earlier, I had been thrown out like garbage. Now, I was being offered the very throne Harrison guarded so jealously. But Hale wasn't finished. His eyes narrowed. "One condition," he said. "On Friday, you walk into that boardroom with confidence. Show them the man Harrison tried to bury. Make them believe you were always meant to lead." I nodded slowly, determination flooding my veins. "I will." Thursday night, as I prepared for the storm ahead, I replayed Harrison's voice in my head. "By Friday, he'll be forgotten." I smiled bitterly. "No, Harrison. By Friday, you'll never forget me." Friday morning. The glass doors of Harrison and Company swung open as I stepped inside, no longer carrying my little notepad, but a calm confidence that wrapped around me like armor. The receptionist froze when she saw me, as if a ghost had walked back in. I gave her a polite nod. "Mr. Harrison is expecting the board in 15 minutes, she stammered. "Perfect," I said, walking past her. Inside the conference room, the same polished table gleamed under the soft lights. The same faces sat around it. Managers, directors, people who had watched me get fired just 4 days ago. Their whispers filled the air. "What's he doing here? Didn't Harrison fire him? This is going to be awkward." Then the door swung open. Harrison strode in, suit sharp, smile sharper. He carried himself like a man untouchable, the king of his little empire. When his eyes landed on me, the smile froze. "Well, well," he said slowly, his voice dripping with mockery. "Look who crawled back. Security must have missed you on the way in." I didn't flinch. "Don't worry. I won't be staying long as a guest." he sneered. Then get out before I... The sound of the door opening cut him off. Richard Hale entered, his presence commanding instant silence. Every board member straightened in their chair, their eyes wide with shock. Harrison's confidence flickered. "Richard," he said, forcing a smile. "What an honor. I didn't know you were joining us." Hale ignored him. He walked to the head of the table, the very seat Harrison always guarded like a crown, and pulled out the chair. But instead of sitting, Hale looked directly at me. "Daniel," he said calmly, "please, take your seat." The room gasped. I walked forward, every step echoing like justice itself. Harrison's face drained of color as I sat in the chair that had once been his throne. "What is this?" Harrison demanded, his voice trembling. Hale's tone was sharp. "As of this morning, I own a controlling share of Harrison and Company, and I've appointed Daniel Brooks as the new CEO." The words hit the room like a thunderclap. Managers exchanged stunned looks. Some smiled discreetly, others simply sat frozen. But Harrison shook his head violently. "Impossible. This is my company. I built this." Hale's eyes narrowed. "No, you inherited it. And under your leadership, it's been sinking. Daniel's vision is the future. I trust him. The board will too." I turned to face Harrison fully. My voice was calm, but every word carried the weight of years of silence. "You fired me on Monday because you were afraid. Afraid that I was becoming what you could never be. But you were wrong about one thing, Harrison." His eyes blazed. "And what's that?" "That I needed you." The silence that followed was suffocating. Harrison's fists clenched, his pride breaking inch by inch. "This isn't over," he spat. "No," I said softly, leaning forward. "For you it is." The board erupted into discussion, voices overlapping. Some congratulated me, others muttered about changes ahead. But I hardly heard them. My eyes stayed on Harrison, the man who had humiliated me, stolen my work, and laughed at my downfall. Now he stood on the other side of the table, small, powerless, exposed. For the first time, he realized what it meant to lose everything. By the time the meeting ended, security had been called. Not for me this time, but for him. As Harrison was escorted out, his glare burned holes into me. Yet even in that moment, he knew the truth. The man he had tried to bury had risen higher than he ever imagined. And now I wasn't just his employee. I was his boss. The boardroom slowly emptied, leaving behind only silence and the faint scent of polished wood. I remained seated at the head of the table, my hands resting on the smooth surface that had once felt so far out of reach. For years, I had walked into this room as just another employee, a shadow behind Harrison's towering ego. Now I sat here as the one in charge. But victory didn't taste like revenge. Tasted like freedom. That afternoon, I called in the team, those same managers and employees who had once stayed silent as I was humiliated. Their faces carried a mix of nerves and curiosity. "I know what you're thinking," I began. "You're wondering if I'll run this company the same way Harrison did, through fear, arrogance, and pride. The answer is no." Eyes widened. A few exchanged hopeful glances. "I was one of you," I continued. "I know what it feels like to give everything, only to be overlooked, doubted, or silenced. That ends today. From now on, this company will not just chase profit. It will value people. Your ideas, your voices, your effort. None of it will be wasted." The room filled with quiet applause, soft at first, then stronger. For the first time, they weren't clapping because they had to. They were clapping because they believed. Later, when the sun dipped low and painted the skyline in gold, I stood by the window of my new office. The city stretched endlessly before me, alive and untamed. My phone buzzed, a message from Hale. "Well done today. You've earned it." I smiled faintly, then looked down at the small notepad still sitting on my desk. The same one I had carried out on Monday, clutched like my last lifeline. Its pages were filled with the scribbles of a man desperate to prove himself. Now those scribbles had turned into a crown. As I closed the notepad, I thought of Harrison. Somewhere out there, he was probably still raging, still convincing himself this was temporary. But deep down, he knew the truth. He had fired me to erase me. Instead, he had set me free. And in just 5 days, I had become everything he feared. To anyone watching my story, I'll leave you with this. Never let someone else's doubt define you. Never let their arrogance bury you. Because sometimes, the worst day of your life is only the beginning of the best one. On Monday, I was nobody. By Friday, I was the boss. And trust me, so can you.